Hey there, I'm Dr. Trish Varner. I have a PhD in psychology and an interest in ancestry and family trees, which I discuss on this channel along with interesting life stories. I am working on a couple of celebrity family trees, but it's taken some time to complete them. So I thought this would be a good topic to discuss in the meantime. One of the most frequent comments I see on the channel is about fathers determining the race, ethnicity, or genealogy of the child. Some people believe that a person's identity is only determined by the father and not the mother. I have even seen comments stating that children share more DNA with their fathers than their mothers. Some even go as far as to say that you can only be black if your father is black, and if your father is white, no matter how brown your skin is, then you have to be white. Those who argue this idea may not be aware that up to 40% of Black American males carry a Y chromosome that they inherited from a non-African male. This overwhelmingly happened prior to 1865, when white men fathered many of the children birthed by enslaved African women. Thus, a large portion of Black American lines come from paternal European lines and maternal African lines. You can determine this through patrilineal and matrilineal tests. X chromosomes are passed unchanged from mother to all of her children. So specifically, you can trace your maternal line because the X chromosome is passed from mother to daughter to daughter to daughter and so on. Y chromosomes are passed unchanged from father to son. My full brother took a matrilineal and patrilineal test. It showed the Y chromosome he inherited from our father originated in Ireland. Does that make everyone in my family white? According to those who believe that the father's line determines a person's race, then it does. If you follow that thought, cutting the Black American population as we know it by almost half, Black people today who look unquestionably Black would then become white. A lot of people use the Bible to justify this thought, specifically the book of Numbers, chapter 1, verse 18. This is where Moses performs a census in Israel by their families and by their fathers' houses, according to males 20 years and above who are able to go to war. I think it's important to put that emphasis on able to go to war. Traditionally, women did not go to war in Israel during that time. I am aware of a few exceptions, like Deborah in the book of Judges, chapter 4. However, that was not a typical scenario, as even Deborah herself in Judges, chapter 4, verse 9, told Barak that he would not receive the honor in battle because he didn't believe God, but that God would give the honor to a woman instead, which means it was not common for women to go to war. In verse 21, we see Yael, a woman, get the victory for killing Sisera. In the book of Numbers, chapter 1, the emphasis seems to be more on numbering the men for war, and there is no mention about women's genealogy being irrelevant. I think it's a stretch to try to use this scripture to suggest that women are not genetically important when determining the makeup of their children. God himself thought it was important enough to have Sarah as the mother of Isaac. Remember, he gave the promise of a child to Abraham and Sarah in the book of Genesis, chapter 17. If Sarah wasn't important, then God would have given Abraham a son from any woman, or perhaps he would have just selected Ishmael, who was Abraham's son by Hagar. The Bible also describes Mary's genealogy in the book of Luke, chapter 3. Mary was the mother of Jesus. Women's genealogy was recorded. Why would their genealogy be recorded if only the father's genealogy was important? In addition, according to traditional Jewish law, Jewish ancestry was determined by the mother, not the father. They followed the matrilineal descent. This may have started because the Bible talks about foreign women turning the hearts away from God. In 1 Kings chapter 11, We see this happening with King Solomon. Foreign women would introduce ideas and customs that were contrary to the Jewish faith, and thus the Jewish husband and children would be turned towards other gods. Requiring children to have a Jewish mother traditionally to be considered Jewish would be a way to protect the faith historically. In the book of 2 Timothy, the Apostle Paul recognizes that Timothy inherited his faith from his mother Eunice and his grandmother Lois. Although Timothy had a Greek father, his Jewish mother and grandmother ensured he learned the customs of the Jewish faith. Having a Jewish mother certainly helped to shape Timothy's identity. So biblically, it can be argued that women indeed have an important place in their children's genealogy as well as upbringing. What about scientifically, though? Are children more genetically related to their fathers? A little over a week ago, I posted a poll on my community page asking people who they thought I was more genetically related to: my dad, my son, my oldest daughter, or my middle daughter. People, overwhelmingly 72% of them, answered that they felt I should be more genetically related to my dad than my children. What do you think? Well, if you agreed with them, you would be wrong. We will use our Ancestry DNA results as a reference. I'm only including those close family members who took the Ancestry DNA test. We all should share approximately 50% DNA with our parents and children. Most children receive 23 chromosomes from their mother and 23 chromosomes from their father. So half of your genetic makeup comes from your mother and the other half from your father. DNA testing companies use centimorgans to measure the test taker's relatedness. The more centimorgans two people share, the more closely related they are. Out of the close relatives I mentioned earlier, I share the most centimorgans with my oldest daughter, followed by my only son, then my middle daughter, and then my dad. There is over a 100 centimorgans difference between my match with my oldest daughter and my match with my dad. It would also be interesting to see if that theory would hold up when comparing my DNA with my mother and my father. Will I share more centimorgans with my mom? My guess would be yes, but I'll provide an update after my mom takes the Ancestry DNA test. One viewer pointed out that we actually receive more DNA from our mothers because of the mitochondria DNA we receive from our mothers. Children are most likely to receive 100% of their mitochondria DNA from their mothers, which can make their relatedness to their mother slightly higher than their relatedness to their father. It should be noted here, too, that some studies have found that although mothers may have the slight edge in DNA relatedness to their children, the DNA that children do inherit from their fathers may be more active than the DNA they inherited from their mothers. Anyway, I decided to test out this theory about DNA inheritance on my children. We already saw that I am more related to my children than my father. Next, I wanted to check to see if my middle daughter shows as more genetically related to me or to her father. Ancestry DNA indeed shows my daughter is slightly more related to me than to her father. She also has 2 half-sisters, one from mom's side, meaning me, and one from her dad's side. Peyton shares more DNA with her maternal half-sister than she does with her paternal half-sister. 27% shared DNA versus 25% shared DNA. She shares less DNA, though, with her maternal half-brother than she does with her paternal half-sister. 22% versus 25%. So I decided to research to see if the Ancestry DNA tests consider mitochondria DNA in their analysis. And apparently, the autosomal DNA tests do not consider the mitochondria DNA. Thus, the percentages of shared DNA shown in my children's results may simply be because of random inheritance. Random inheritance of DNA means each child receives a random selection of DNA from their parents. For instance, each of my biological children received 50% of my DNA, but they may not have received the same 50%. For example, according to Ancestry DNA, I share slightly more DNA with my son than I do with my middle daughter. However, my middle daughter shares less DNA with my son than her other siblings. She may have simply inherited different parts of my DNA than my son did. Before anyone comments, we do not treat any sibling different in the house because they are a half sibling. All siblings are given the same ranking in how they interact with one another. The purpose of the video is to test out the thought that a child is more related to his or her father and paternal side than to his or her mother or maternal side. In general, full siblings with the same biological mom and dad, will share approximately 50% of their DNA, but that can range from 38% through 61%. Half siblings who only share one biological parent, on average share 25% of their DNA, but the range can be from 17% through 34%. And this is the case regardless if you share a mom or a dad. DNA relatedness does not increase simply because you share the same father rather than the same mother, as we saw in my daughter's example. Again, my daughter shares slightly more DNA with me than she does her dad, and slightly more DNA with her maternal sister than she does with her paternal sister. I realize this video still may not change some people's views on relatedness. They still may argue that children receive most of their DNA from their fathers. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Anyway, do you think a person will share more DNA with an individual they physically resemble? For instance, some people guessed that my oldest daughter shared the most DNA with me because, according to them, she looks the most like me. Of course, we know that identical twins share 100% of their DNA, but what about non-identical individuals? If a child looks more like their father, do you think that means they should share more DNA with their father? Let's talk about it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like and share, and comment also if you like. That helps to get the video and the channel into the YouTube algorithm. As a reminder, I am working on 2 new life story videos that will include celebrity family trees. I'm really looking forward to getting that out to you. So make sure you have the notification bell turned on. One last thing, if you did email me about being included in my upcoming book, or if you're interested in joining the Life with Dr. Trish team as a researcher, I am going through all of those emails and I will be responding soon. Thank you everyone for your submissions. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.